What's going on, everybody? It's your favorite dating coach, Elliot Scott, and as you can see by the title below, we're going to talk about how to get a guy to text you back when he's not texting you back. Happens all the time. Everyone has had this before. It's a pain in the ass. It's like, why do you have my number? Why did you give me your number when you don't even text? Fun games, right? So if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Just click the red button below. I love you forever and ever and ever, along with the bell notification, which means you get my videos right away, right when they come out, so you don't got to put up with any bullshit mind games. You got the answers right there. Okay, so with that being said, before we talk about how to get a guy to text you back, let's talk about why he doesn't text you back in the first place. And there's a lot of reasons, but I usually think, or I believe that 90% of the reason why is one of these three things. Okay, so I talk about the first thing I would say, I guess, is the guy hooked? Is the guy super interested before the texting? You know, it's not so much the texting all the time that pulls him away or pushes him away. It's, was he initially interested to begin with? Okay. Now, a lot of women would say, well, yeah, he was. I would say he was, because he showed a lot of promise in the beginning. He texted me a lot, you know, the first several weeks, month, but now it's dying off. Why? And that leads me to number 2 and 3, which is it's either redundant or he's getting very bored. So here's the thing with that. And I like to use the analogy of Disneyland for this. I use it a lot in my videos, but I'm going to use it here. You can want to go to your life goal could be to go to Disneyland, right? Disney World, wherever. And you go there and you spend the next 3, 4, 5 days there in a row and you're having a blast. However, towards the end, day 4, day 5, you're exhausted, you're tired. It's just like if you were to go on a trip anywhere to go see family or vacay across the country, your state, whatever, right? It's fun, it's good, you had your time away, but now it's getting tiring. Now something as valuable as going to Disneyland or going on that trip is starting to lower, and something as simple as I want to go home and rest and sleep in my own bed, that starts to have the same value now. Okay, so when you come back, right, you can leave Disneyland and you go back home from vacation, you're not immediately wanting to go back to Disney, to Disneyland or that trip. You're wanting to take a break. You're wanting to rest. You have no urgency or care to go there again. Now, what I'm trying to get at is, I think texting should be more sporadic. I think texting should not be as redundant. If your relationship, especially if it's long distance, now of course if you have a foundation and you have a strong relationship with the person, great. But if you're someone who meets someone online and you're already starting at a disadvantage where you're distant and you don't have that foundation or base, it's going to be very hard. Now, of course, there's exceptions to the rules. I know people personally who have had long distance relationships and now they're together. Started off long distance, but for the most part, right, I know a lot of women who would have come to me on Tinder and say that they met this guy who lives 2 hours away, 3 hours away, and I'm like, well, that's going to be very hard to do. Because 1, you don't have that base. 2, it's very hard to build attraction when people, I think in general, are visual and physical by nature. Like, we're not made to text and keep this distance. This is a new age thing, right? If you look at it from a biological or evolutionary perspective, we're made to be together in person, right? Mating, courtship, togetherness to raise an offspring. That's just how we're made, okay? So texting's already a pain in the ass, but when it becomes redundant and it loses its spark and it gets, again, third thing, boring, it's like, why would I want to text? And I know you've been on both sides of this, right? I know you've been the one who's texting and you don't get the reply, and I know you're the one also who has been getting the replies, and then you might take a little bit for granted, like you see them and you don't respond right away, right? Especially, again, if the texts are boring, if there's something simple like, hey, good morning. Is it nice to see? Yes, but like I said, it loses its power when you send it every night or every morning, or the good night. Send the good night text every night. It gets redundant. Okay, is it good to hear sometimes? Yes, but if you're going to do that and text all day, every day, throughout the day, no. like I said, it becomes a hassle. It becomes a chore. It starts to feel like an obligation. It loses its power. So to get someone to text you, let's reverse engineer all these things. Okay, let's get the guy hooked. And to do that, I'm a big believer on quality over quantity. You don't have to see him all the time. You don't have to text him all the time. But when you do, you should make it matter. I am a big fan of simplicity. I'm a huge believer on, if you do a good job on the first date, you're going to get the second date. If you do a good job on the second date, you're going to get the third date. Rinse and repeat, right? If you limit red flags, you build attraction, you're more in the moment, you have fun, you hang out, have that sexual tension, laugh, and he feels like his life is better with you in it than without. You're just having a good time. Why would he not want to see you? Okay? Now, of course, if you're doing that and then you're texting all the time when you're away, I feel like, I always tell people this, that I feel like texting is an extension of yourself still being there, right? So even though you're away, you're not, because you're still texting. Give them time to miss you, right? And make it, and hook them when you're together, okay? So that's number one. Number two is to cut out the redundancy. Stop being redundant. Stop texting all the time. Make it more sporadic. Like I said, make them miss you. Make the text worthy. Quality over quantity. And three, when you do send text, I always think you should ask fun questions, so there should be some humor behind it. When you're asking how's your day and you're asking that every day, that's a pain in the ass. No one wants to answer that. It just gets boring. Now, you might be asking, okay, great, awesome. The problem I have is he's not texting me and there's no thread, right? There's nothing together, like there's no connection. He's not texting, I'm not texting, or if I do, he doesn't respond. So what's supposed to happen? Well, I'm an advocate on social media when that comes to play. People ask me, how do I use social media, or how should I use social media? And I'm not a big fan of it in terms of attraction, because again, it's technology. You should be there in person, but it does build context, and I do believe both sexes do have each other in the back of their mind wondering, what's going on. So, when a girl doesn't text a guy sometimes, she's probably wondering, oh, I bet you he's sitting there text or wondering what I'm doing, or thinking about me, things like that, and vice versa. I think a lot of guys, when they're not texting a girl, they're thinking the girl's waiting around for their call or their text. Because I remember I used to be crazy about this girl maybe like 10 years ago, and I would sit around and wait for her text, and she probably knew it, but she didn't care because, like I said, she wasn't hooked, she wasn't interested. I didn't get her to that point, right? So who cares? So that's why I'm a big believer in social media. What I would do is post things kind of doing the opposite of what he thinks, that you are actually out, that you are doing things, that you do have other options, that you are social, that you do have friends, and that kind of stuff. So now he's thinking, okay, she's actually not sitting around waiting for my call. She's actually doing her own things. And who's this good looking motherfucker she's with? This guy's way better looking than me. He's out of my league. I better check in. Because no guy likes competition. No guy likes losing. Because we strive on not competition, but our self-worth is so wrapped up in what women think of us. It's sad, but it's true. We're so status envy, right? We like to provide and satisfy. That's just masculine nature. And we feel like we're losing you to another man. That's not a good thing. So he might reach out. And like I said, you should be going out anyway to create the options. But you need to formulate or create that vibe or that context that, hey, dude, I want you, but I don't need you. I'm out doing my own thing. If you want to text, then let's text. But if you don't, then guess what? I'm filling my time with something else. So that being said, ladies, again, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Just click the red button below along with the bell notification. Hopefully that helped you in some way. Like I said, usually, just to sum this up, it's usually those three reasons. Redundancy, he's not hooked, and he's bored on why someone doesn't text. It just becomes redundant, a chore. There's no spark to it. So if there's not, then why would I keep doing it? You never see people read books that they're not interested in. Working out is not fun, and you end up quitting if it's not something you really want to do. Okay, you have to have a reason why you want to do it. And usually that reason would be interest and, you know, a little mystery and curiosity that he's interested in you. But if he doesn't have that, then it's going to be a problem. So just reverse engineer it, add those things, and you'll be okay. With that being said, I love you, take care, and peace.